After an accident, minutes matter. Your words and actions matter even more. You need help, and you need it now. This is David vs. Goliath, brought to you by Dolman Law Group Accident Injury Lawyers, a boutique firm with a reputation for going head-to-head with the insurance company giants and putting people over profits.
Hey, welcome to another edition of the David vs. Goliath podcast. I'm here with my law partner, Matt Dolman, and today we're going to talk a little bit about some social media stuff that's in the news. Many of you know we're involved in social media harm lawsuits, and just recently, the Supreme Court came down and refused to revive a suit against Snapchat, saying Snapchat was protected by laws that protect social media companies from stuff that's posted by the users of the company. So let me give you a little background on what happened in this case, and then Matt, tell us a little bit about why this would be different or the same as the stuff we handle. So this is a particular case where a student and a teacher had some contact at school. From the information I've read, you got to realize in sexual assault claims, especially those involving a minor, these minors are initialized. It doesn't throw their name out there. So in the various different stories about this, there has been differences in reporting as to whether this minor was a male or the minor was a female. In any event, this minor had contact with their female science teacher, exchanged a Snapchat handle, and one thing led to another. Snapchat gave this science teacher the opportunity to send disappearing texts, disappearing photos, and slowly over time those turned into a sexual nature, allowing the science teacher to groom the student, turned into numerous sexual encounters, and I think actually got discovered when the student overdosed on drugs that were apparently supplied by the teacher. So we've got a lot of social media harm cases. We're pushing this stuff. Matt, how is this Snapchat case different than some of the stuff we're dealing with?
So in the instant case, the case that came down yesterday where the Supreme Court remanded this back to the lower level courts, this is a case that falls under Section 230 of the Communication Decency Act. 230 of the CDA, what that does is it serves as like a sword and shield for internet companies, internet providers, those who host content, for content that's actually produced, disseminated by third parties on their platform. So Joe Blow goes onto your platform, your Google, or goes onto your platform, your Facebook rather, or Instagram, and posts something that's harmful in nature, that's repugnant, that's disgusting. You still don't have a case because Facebook or Instagram, Meta in that case, is not responsible for the content posted by a third party. Now let's juxtapose that for a second with the current litigation that's going on in the Northern District of California, known as the social media harm litigation. The argument there is we don't care about Section 230 of the Communication Decency Act. We believe that 230 is overbroad. We want to redefine 230. But at the same point, the way we're trying to get around 230 is novel in concept. We're arguing a product liability theory. We're arguing that the algorithm and how Facebook is generating this content, how they're showing it to you, okay, not just the content's on there, but how they're taking that content and sending it to the actual users, and they're using an algorithm based on predictive behavior by prior users or that current user and their profile and how they normally, their viewing habits. That is the problem itself. It's the algorithm, not the actual content. You attack the content, you're dealing with Section 230. That's possibly an insurmountable hurdle. I mean, we saw it when it came down the Gonzalez case in January. They already told us that they're probably never going to get rid of 230. And if they do, only in very narrow circumstances. So the real attack on it is we're not going to go at 230. We're going to go around 230 and attack the actual algorithm that Google, or rather I should say Meta, and ByteDance. So Meta produces Facebook and Instagram. ByteDance is behind TikTok. That they utilize algorithms to attract minors, to attract youngsters based on, again, predictive habits and how they normally scroll and how they look at videos.
Yeah, I'd like to almost just, I dumb it down. I like to do analogies, stuff like this. I like to almost analogize this with the situation where someone goes to a restaurant every day, a buffet, right, every day after school. The Snapchat case saying if what you do is you go up to the buffet and you have exposure to all the foods, the hundreds of foods on the buffet, and you choose what you want on your plate, that's okay because you've got access, no one's curating it. If, on the other hand, you get stuck at a table and someone goes up to that buffet and brings you nothing but cake each and every time, that's all they're going to bring you. You don't get to choose. They're going to feed you what they choose to pick out. And suddenly you end up morbidly obese. You're going, well, it's not. I didn't choose to eat the cake. All they would feed me was cake. Every time I showed up here and put my butt in the seat, I got cake. It's
a good analogy.
What
Actually,
do you expect
I like that.
to happen? Yeah. So, if you let someone go to the buffet and you're not in charge of it, you're not choosing which type of media, which type of stuff they consume, it's on them because they're choosing from the world. But if you're funneling it out and only giving them cake and then say, it's not my fault you gained weight, well, yeah, it is. You gave them nothing but cake. What do you think's going to happen?
So in the instant situation, I guess and I like Stan's analogies, is what Stan does always. He takes very complicated situations and make them very easy to understand. There is some liability and culpability on the face of Meta and on ByteDance for the content that they curate because they're constantly showing content to minors that there's a reason for it. That's what the algorithm is designed to do. It's designed to attract and addict. They know they're addicting the teens. It's just based on the amount of screen time. There's been numerous studies. I mean, it's been well researched. There's published papers on the effect. It's very similar and akin to using a slot machine. The dopamine effect that one gets from scrolling videos on TikTok and getting the videos you want, and you're going to go through a couple of videos before you see the ones you want. You'll scroll a few more times, and you'll get a couple of hits that aren't great, then you'll get the one that you want to see again. It's very similar. It has the same type of effect on the brain chemistry for a minor as playing the slot machines for an adult. That's scary.
Yeah, it's true. And, in some of these, they've said that the algorithms are actually modeled after a slot machine. And I can't verify that this is the case, but I've heard and seen stories and seen research that indicates that, in fact, TikTok was modeled after the slot machine. And when curating the feed, TikTok doesn't just give you stuff that you'll really like, that in theory, what it's doing is giving you 2 or 3 videos that are okay that you'll kind of click, and then one they know that's really going to appeal to you. That's the slot machine hitting. That 4th video, the 5th one that really appeals to you, that's the slot machine hitting the little hit of dopamine, right? And then I've seen it with my own son. As you tell them to get off, they're like, click, 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 just trying to get a few more spins in, see if they get one more hit of dopamine before you physically make them put the phone down. They're not watching these videos all the way through. It's just trying to get to the good ones. And it's scary because we weren't exposed to that as a youth. We don't know how this is going to play out, but we know it's creating addictive and compulsive behaviors in children. I can see it. I don't need a scientist or a study to tell me that. I see it in my own kid.
Well, I mean, we're just seeing just the general rates of suicidal ideation, depression, anxiety have skyrocketed among those 18 and under. You have a generation of adolescents that are viewing the world through the filter of social media, where no one has acne. Everyone's teeth is perfect. Everyone has perfect complexion. Everyone has a perfect body. And it's not realistic. It has a detrimental effect on all minors, okay, boys and girls. But it's much worse imagine being a teenage girl and the pressure that you have, and all of a sudden everyone just looks perfect and everyone's fit, and the body image, and that's what causing body dysmorphia and just depression, angst, and anxiety. We're trying to have to fit into or create, live up to an expectation that's just unrealistic that has been set, by social media that is not in any way realistic, and it's awful. And I don't think we have a way of solving this yet, beyond more legislation. And the whole problem with legislation, though, is sometimes it can be overbroad. And we also know that sometimes the cure is worse than the problem itself. And we will see. We'll see how this all plays out over the next few years. But this is a novel concept in attacking this with a product liability theory, because never before have we applied a product liability theory to something that we can't touch, feel. This is not a tangible object. This is social media's thoughts. So this is a little bit different.
Well, and I'd like to also bring this. If you're sitting here and you're listening to this and you're an adult with a job, this is going to resonate with you, right? Okay, back before the internet, before we had social media companies, before we had email, you would leave work at 5 and you would come back at 9, you'd check your voicemail, but you didn't have, between the 5 p.m. and 9 a.m., you didn't have communication. You didn't have people reaching out to you about work. Now, in most professions, the stream of email is constant. You know, different people in different time zones, they come at all times of the day. So even when you leave work, you're constantly getting emails, maybe 8 or 9 at night, where you're responding to some work emails, and you never really disconnect. But that's us as adults, as professionals. We pay and we choose what we do for a living. Okay? Students, same way. Okay? Not everyone's experience in the classroom is great. All right? Some people are just doing their time. They're getting bullied. They're getting picked on. All this stuff is going on. And the relief is when the bell rings at 2:30 or 3 o'clock, they get to go home and forget it. Not anymore. Right? Social media keeps that throttle on. You don't leave work. The day doesn't end. If you're getting picked on, it continues. It continues, it continues, it continues the day and night. And in the morning, it's still there. You never get away from it with the way social media works. And that's got a huge detrimental effect on our children. I don't think people, realize if you go back, the social relationships kid have shaped them. They change your shapes, your thoughts, what you like to do. Okay, if you had a bunch of friends that played sports, you tended to play sports. If you had a bunch of friends that played video games, you tended to play video games. Right? These communities don't exist physically now. They exist on the internet.
Yeah, now you go to the mall now, or you go anywhere where you see teenagers congregating. Even, I would even say adults. They're all on their phones. They're all staring at their phones. They're not hanging out with each other. It's probably cut down on recreation activity. It's made the world smaller. It's opened up communication. It's created the rapid dissemination of news, but it's also created the rapid dissemination of fake news. And that's what's scary out there, is that a lot of what's being pushed on social media is not actually the truth. And we're going to see that with the election coming up. And we saw it the last election cycle, and possibly influence from both Russian and Chinese influence on and their intelligence on our election, and just the overall news news feed that we're seeing. A lot of fake stories are being embedded. So while it's made the world a smaller place, it's made the world possibly a more dangerous place. And we didn't have to deal with this in our generation. It's scary. But again, though, I also caution that too much legislation could be a problem in and of itself, because everything has unintended consequences. And when you start legislating this, you're punishing those who may be able to, or might be mature enough to be able to understand the content they're looking at. The First Amendment protects free speech, only if it's harmful. That's where you draw the line, is harmful speech, and it's a very tough burden as well.
Well, and we're just getting to the tip of the iceberg as it comes to AI, right? Matt, I don't work on AI, but if I wanted to create some sort of compromising photo of you through use of artificial intelligence, I got a feeling in 15 minutes I could create a reasonably, believable photo of you kicking little children.
Why would you put that out in the universe on the show? But
well, you know what I'm saying, like something compromising, and it would be believable. And anyone who looks at it from the outside is going to say, that's Matt kicking children. They're not going to say that's Stan messing with Matt.
No, that actually happened recently in Baltimore, Maryland, with a school teacher, about a fake image that was posted about the teacher. I don't know if you saw that. This is a newsworthy story that came out about a month ago.
See, I've seen okay, so you can elaborate a little bit, but I used to kicking children. Matt doesn't kick kids, obviously kids, dogs, any of that. But,
not clubbing seals on the weekends now.
No, but if I threw a picture out there that looks believable, you've got a circle of 20 people around you that know it's false, and then everyone else sees the photo and doesn't know you well enough, right? They're like, wow, that Matt's kind of an
and you're seeing that now in politics, and fake stories are being planted about both Joe Biden and Donald Trump, and by both sides. And just, again, the dissemination of fake or news that has some truth to it, but then it just meanders off. And that's the problem, is getting news via social media. But I think we're getting a little bit off topic here. What I want to caution those who are listening about is that what you saw yesterday in the Snapchat decision that came down from the Supreme Court simply kicked that case. They punted it. I punted it back to lower court because they're not going to opine on Section 230. 230 serves as a sword and shield again to Snapchat in this case. They're protected. It's a third party that posted content on their platform. That's what 230 is designed for. The social media harm lawsuits that we're part of in California, that is completely different. In that case, we're not attacking 230. I mean, we don't think we're ever going to get around 230, but that might be insurmountable based on the Gonzalez decision from the Supreme Court back in January. But we're also attacking it based on the algorithm itself. It's a product liability theory. The algorithm has created all sorts of issues that were unintended, maybe, or maybe it was intended to addict young children. But either way, the consequences are dire.
Yeah, and I don't think the intention was like addict young children. The intention behind it was to encourage consumption, right? Well, how do you encourage consumption? You essentially addict,
Correct.
Right? And it's, and that's where I think it goes. And I think we're now seeing these things because the internet's only been around long. These social media aren't like we're learning as we go. We're just finding out that the cigarettes cause cancer, and we need to put the warning on there and let people know, hey, be careful. This isn't as safe as we might have thought it was. So definitely be careful when you're out there. But the point I was making when we were going off topic is the internet's an incredibly difficult place for sophisticated adults to navigate and determine what's real and what's false. Right? It's even harder for our adolescent and our youth, and it gets even more difficult when you've got sophisticated companies feeding them cake or whatever it is they take bites of without any sort of filter on is it true, is it accurate, and is it healthy? All right, these are our kids. They know their youth. They know they're susceptible, and it's incumbent upon these companies to take the steps necessary to protect them in light of the billions and billions of dollars that are being made on the product.
100%. So if you're sitting at home, you're a parent of an adolescent who's depressed, has serious anxiety issues, they've been diagnosed with such, have expressed suicidal ideation or anything more horrific, as a result of cumulative exposure to social media, we'd love to hear from you. You can always reach out to me and email me at Matt, M-A-T-T, at Dolman Law, D like in David, O-L, M-A-N-L-A-W.com. That's my partner, Stan Gipe. You can also reach him at stan.gipe, G-I-P-E, at the same address. You can reach us anytime, day or night, or you can go also onto our website, Lawsuit Legal News. And we have a practice page about the social media harm lawsuits, the lawsuits against Facebook and Instagram. And we would love to help you. We'd be honored.
Yeah, absolutely. Couldn't have said it better.
Thank you very much and have a blessed day.
This episode of David vs. Goliath is over, but your journey is just getting started. To share your story with us, visit dolmanlaw.com. That's DOLMAN law.com or call 866-965-6242. The insights and views presented in David vs. Goliath are for general information purposes only and should not be taken as legal advice for any individual case or situation. The information presented is not a substitute for consulting with an attorney, nor does tuning into this podcast constitute an attorney-client relationship of any kind. Any case result information provided on any portion of this podcast should not be understood as a promise of any particular result in a future case. Dolman Law Group. Big firm results, small firm personal attention.